Welcome to the God of Film Podcast. Welcome to the God of Film Podcast. Welcome to the God of Film Podcast. Welcome to the God of Film Podcast.
Welcome to God in Film, the podcast where a Christian and atheist dive into the best that cinema has to offer and see if we find parallels with the gospel or any other Bible stories. I'm writer and terrible singer Giles Goff.
I'm librarian and frustrated theatre kid Julia Hall.
And I'm RS teacher, and I don't know how to love him, Natalie Miniker.
But you try so hard, and I really do.
I try. It's a daily struggle.
And for our Easter special, we're looking at Jesus Christ Superstar, the 1973 version of Andrew Lloyd-Webber and Tim Rice's phenomenally successful rock opera musical. We'll be looking at Bertolt Brecht, the representation of Judas, the controversy around Mary Magdalene, and exactly what kind of Jesus do we get in this film. Natalie, I know how you feel about this film. I know what your thoughts are, and we have carved out time out of our day to find out that. But Julia, tell me what this film means to you.
So this is the first time I watched this
Love
film
it. Yes.
No!
I knew of Jesus Christ Superstar. There was a spate of like Jesus Christ Superstar D&D memes.
Interesting.
That kind of popped up, which was really fun. I'll send you some YouTube links, don't you worry. So I never sat down to watch the 73 film. And even, because I did some of my fact research before I watched this film, and that still didn't quite prepare me for like the inexplicable tanks that roll in and then are never discussed. I adore costume design when it's like decade does time period. And this is so like 70s does biblical, but some people are more biblical than others, and some people are more 70s than others, which is delightful. It does, speaking as an amateur dramatics member myself, it does feel like an amateur dramatic. Like, what could you get out the costume cupboard? What could you find? What are you piecing together to make it work?
It's a bit like, what if we took a load of theatre kids and stuck them in the middle of nowhere and told them to put on a musical? It is those vibes. Like,
why did none of the Pharisees wear shirts? This is especially jarring, having come from, we've done 4 seasons of The Chosen now.
Yeah, could you?
So I'm very used to Pharisees having a certain look, and these kind of oily, bare-chested men with silly hats wasn't that.
I'm retroactively thinking of The Chosen now and just sort of picturing all the priests' nipples on display, you know?
Yeah, right. Like, put them away. But no, I did enjoy it. I think that then set me on a rabbit hole of different clips of different versions of Jesus Christ Superstar. So for me, the 73 version feels like a good first draft.
Yeah,
of something
absolutely.
Better. I think Jesus Christ Superstar works better the more conceptual it is in terms of setting and costume. I think taking it out of the desert helps it a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, because to me, the 1973 one, like, that is the version. And I think because it was written only a couple of years before that, it was written to be a rock opera. It is a product of the 70s. It is so inherently 70s that when you see later versions, I've seen quite a few adaptations of it. I quite like the recent one that was the Tim Minchin one from about 10 years ago.
That one I think is if you sat me down and like, okay, you can only watch one. I think the 2012 version ticks enough of my boxes consistently for it to be like, actually, I think that's my
it does some, but that does like what you were saying, because it modernizes it brings like a social media element into it. I mean, it's got Mel C in it, who is one of my all-time favorite people ever. I'm like one of the few people followed her like solo career and like obsessively, but
she used to be my least favorite Spice Girl, but
she's the best Spice Girl. How dare you? Do not besmirch my MLC girl
now.
But for me, when they modernise it and stuff, I love it, but it always feels slightly too clean. It needs to be that 70s grungy, slightly not perfect. Like, not every single character in the movie hits their notes perfectly. They're not. It's not polished, and I like that roughness to it. And I feel like when I listen to later ones, they're a little bit too musical theatre-y and a little less rock opera-y.
I was listening to the podcast Musical Splaining about this one, and what they pointed out was like, this is a rock opera coming in 1973, so this is, we're not even really into things like prog rock at this point. It talks about how Gethsemane is basically a song that is going to inspire a lot of hair metal in the years to come from this point, because the singers are trying to imitate this particular point. I
feel like for Gethsemane, I need to get this off of my chest.
Okay.
Right, the top note in Gethsemane, the Y, the top, right, that is so ridiculous for a tenor voice to get. For reference, that's the top of my range. That's the second G above middle C if you're looking at a piano. That's the top of a lower woman's range. That's a soprano range that these guys are having to hit.
I know.
It's insane. It's insane.
So what I learned was that I think it's not actually written like that. I think the Y isn't written like that. I think it might be worth checking out John Legend's version, because I think he sings it as written.
His is like this kind of the standout different one that a lot of people kind of
if you look at like most Jesuses do try to hit that note, because I've seen there's a brilliant video, I'll see if I can share it to you on YouTube. It's a super cut of like about 24 different Jesuses just hitting the high note. It's amazing. I mean, I love singing along with it, but I cannot get anywhere close to that note.
I'm going to drag us back. I am like the sheepdog of this episode. I just
needed to say how impressive it is technically, and that's it. That's. I just needed to get that off my chest.
Now you can get plenty of other things off your chest now, because now it's time for Julia's facts.
My facts. You know that my absolute favourite part of the Bible is when Jesus rocks up at the temple and starts flipping them tables, baby.
As soon as I watched that scene, I was like,
so excited.
Go on, get in, lads.
Only 2 takes of that sequence were shot because they ran out of props to break. After
he goes for it.
So it's like there's the mirror stand that you just lift from the bottom.
That's 7 years bad luck times however many mirrors are up there. That's
also, that must be heavy. I have said previously Jesus was hench.
This Jesus is not that hench.
He's tiny.
He's got I don't know how he does it. So what you're watching the film,
he's a tiny little pixie fella. This one
is either the first or the second take. I can say that with confidence because there were only 2.
That was amazing.
And between takes, the cast would play volleyball, so they divided themselves into Team Jesus and Team Judas. But no scores were revealed on IMDb, unfortunately.
Love it.
And it's funny, Natalie, that you should mention rock operas, because this rock opera was what inspired Richard O'Brien to write the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, that's awesome.
What? So apparently Richard O'Brien was hired to kind of understudy as Herod.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I could so say that.
Yeah.
And initially he was sort of going for more of an Elvis flavoured Herod, which a bit like the Pharaoh in Joseph has that very Elvis flavour.
Joseph.
But, quote, when push came to shove, they decided they didn't want me as Herod. They gave me 300 quid and let me go, O'Brien said. I went home and started writing Rocky on my guitar. I was pissed off because they had the nerve to call Superstar a rock opera. There are some nice songs in there, but rock and roll it isn't.
Ow!
Hey guys, when was the last time you wrote an entire musical out of pure spite?
Yeah, so thank you, Superstar, for giving us Rocky Horror Picture Show. Again, out of pure spite, I will say this.
Love it.
Spite is a very effective motivator.
Yes, ma'am.
But speaking of Herod, so apparently in the original Broadway version, Herod was actually played by a drag queen.
Okay.
But the director for this film, Norman Jewison, thought it was too scandalous for the film and decided that the best alternative was this Hugh Hefner monstrosity. vibe, which apparently was not.
I think that's
so scandalous.
I think that's. This guy is so much nicer than Hugh Hefner.
Yes, actually, that is unfair to this heretic compare him to Hugh Hefner, but just it's so bizarre. So that was the solution so as to not include a drag queen. I kind of wish maybe we, just for comparison, we could have seen a drag queen do that, but this is what we got. My last fact being that Andrew Lloyd-Webber actually hated the original Broadway release and apparently wasn't a massive fan of the 73 film either, but from what the sources kind of differed, but from what I can tell, his preferred version is actually the 2018 version, starring John Legend, which also had, I believe, Alice Cooper as King Herod in that version.
Oh, I need to see that. I've not seen it.
It's not my favourite. John Legend, I think, has a good voice. I don't think his acting is very solid, but that version did win an Emmy, which earned Webber and Rice EGOT status in one fell swoop.
Nice one.
So there you go. That's all of my facts. If you want the Lloyd-Webber experience, you should go and watch the 2018 version, the NBC live event, somewhere on YouTube. I don't know.
Do you know?
Awesome.
Do you know one name I didn't expect to see attached to this for the film version? 1973 American biblical drama, directed by Norman Jewison, co-written by Jewison and Melvin Bragg.
Yeah. I saw that the other day.
Welcome to In Our Time. I'm radio for like the most delightfully soothing voice in all of radio, Melvin Bragg. Right.
Do you know another interesting fact? I kind of went and had a look through the cast list last night to see what other stuff. Because a lot of those guys, I've never seen them in anything else. A lot of them were just kind of they're stage actors. The guy who played Peter had a very interesting career after this film.
I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say, Julia?
The actor who played Peter went on to have a career that perhaps Mary Magdalene was accused of having, and directed quite a few of those sorts of films as well. So
yes, he was award-winning in that particular film.
I didn't know he was an award.
He was a highly decorated director of films that are not appropriate to talk about on this podcast. And it's funny he got his big break playing Peter. I don't know. Feels incongruous.
Amazing.
See, I'm just trying to keep it appropriate because I know my students do listen to this. Family friendly.
Love it. Do appreciate it, So, normally at this point we go straight into finding the faith in the film, but we're going to do something slightly different. I'm going to look at finding the film in the faith.
Hey!
And because you don't really need me to tell you about the gospel parallels in Jesus Christ Superstar.
I'm not sure how
it's
the Bible
tough,
is
isn't
this
it?
film.
This isn't like me trying to find it in Fireman Sam, they're fairly clear, One thing that got me was I was looking at I watched the version on Amazon Prime, and I'm not sure if I'm just remembering it differently, but I think the opening is different from the one that I had on, I think it might have been VHS. I think it might have been VHS video. You can tell me what you remember, but I remember the film just opening on Judas on the hill. And
it's always had that opening with the bus and stuff, yeah.
It might be
maybe your VHS maybe was a pirate
It might
copy.
be it was just my brain edited it out because I was like, can we get to the singing now, please? Can we get come on, But
it's an interesting overture.
It occurred to me that you get all the characters all arriving on this bus, this very sort of beaten up old bus, and it's got sort of Arabic writing on the side of it, which could be a reference to the 6-Day War, which I think had happened comparatively recently by that point.
Or it could have been that was just the only bus they were able to get because they didn't have a massive budget for this film.
Well, you say that, Nat, but this this film has 2 jets and 5 tanks.
That's where the budget went.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't much, but it all went on tank.
I can't even get 1 tank for any of my films, you know?
I know, right?
I keep hanging around the RAF Valley saying, is anyone using that fighter jet? Do you mind if I... No, okay, all right, okay. But, yeah. So, it did occur to me, like, what did this remind me of? The fact that you see the entire cast all get out of a bus and then effectively start setting up for a load of hippies do a musical in the desert sort of thing. And it felt quite Brechtian to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know what I mean, Bertolt Brecht was a German practitioner, a theatre practitioner, playwright and poet who was coming of age during the Weimar Republic in Germany. And he was putting on plays, and the theory he's known best for is alienation theory. And it's every sort of theatre kid knows about this sooner or later. We got taught it in A-level, and it's a theatrical technique designed to prevent audience from emotional immersion, encouraging instead a critical, intellectual, and objective perspective on the performance. And by making familiar events seem strange or unnatural, Brecht sought to provoke social reflection and action rather than passive empathy. And it's one of the things about this film is that you're never allowed to get too immersed in it. I don't think you're never, because it's this quite postmodern mashup of, as you say, the 70s to biblical era. It's unique, or fairly unique, I would say, in that respect, that it's not even trying to be. It's not trying to be biblically accurate, but it's not trying to be modern either. It's trying to be this weird kind of mashup of the two.
Yeah.
And I think if I was being generous, I would think that maybe it's Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd-Webber trying to get you as a viewer to kind of question the passion narrative. What do you guys think?
I may have some content about this prepared.
Or do you?
But I will jump in a little bit.
Fantastic. Well, that pretty much, like I say, seeing the cast get out of the bus, that pretty much wraps up all I had to say about Bertolt Brecht. And that's pretty much all I had to say about the Finding the Film and the Faith. So let's get into Finding the Faith in the Film.
Ta-da! So, I mean, seeing as I am the person that basically since the moment Giles said that he was thinking of doing a faith-based film podcast, I was like, can we do Jesus Christ Superstar? Jesus Christ Superstar.
Like, no, it's too obvious. It's too obvious. Everyone will see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've basically worn you down. And I think at this point it's just easier to say yes to shut me up. So, like, I mean, there's 3 characters that I'd like to talk about. I think it makes sense if I start with Jesus. He's the main dude. And then I'd like to talk about Judas and Mary as well. So those 3 sort of main characters. The one question that I kind of like to pose to you guys is when you're watching the film, it's which Jesus are we getting? Like, what version of Jesus do you think we are being presented with? Like, how do you see the Jesus in that film?
I've been thinking about this a lot. And he's not a loving Jesus, is he? Now maybe, like, okay, we've all had bad weeks. So... And if you're going around with the knowledge that you're probably going to be sort of captured and tortured by the Romans on Thursday, that's going to mess up the big.
It's going to harsh your mellow.
You're not going to be able to focus very well on, very much on it on Monday or Tuesday. But if you compare it to, like, say, Jonathan Rumi's Jesus, who he has that kind of that warmth. That kind of that sort of real kind of kindness. This Jesus just seems mad at everybody all the time. You know, the vibe you get from him is a teacher the week before the GCSE exams, and kids are going like, "Well, but what about this bit?" And you're like, "No, I have taught you this. We have done this quite separate." You know, so he seems he seems incredibly frustrated, and there's not. How can I put it? It's not that I need Jesus to be relatable, because obviously he's the Son of God. Or is he in this version? But he doesn't... Yeah, he doesn't seem warm. He doesn't seem loving.
I always thought there was a really weird bit, where I think it's Everything's All Right, when Mary's basically like, oh, we'll get like the nice myrrh out for you. And Judas is like, that costs like 300 silver pieces, bro. Like, we could have used that money to like help people.
That's from the Bible.
Yeah.
Jesus says like, basically, oh, there's always going to be poor people, pathetically struggling. We can't help them all. Don't worry about it. I was like,
yeah.
Well, okay.
Know,
so most of that is from the Bible.
It's from the Bible.
Yeah. The pathetically struggling isn't. So, but it's Jesus is basically trying to tell them to prioritize in that moment. It's like, look, you're not wrong. I get you. I am dying like tomorrow. So can we? If it's
can I have
okay,
this one thing, please?
Can we have this? Judas, is it all right if today is about me? Is that okay? So it's funny because by that point,
that bit always felt a bit.
I always found that when I read the Bible, though, as a kid, I was always I was kind of on Judas's side a little bit.
No, but like Judas at this point is the guy who can only see the world through the lens of his job. Judas was the sort of treasurer. He was and as we know, he was kind of helping himself to the money. So the idea he only looks at things and can only see things in terms of, oh, we could have spent it on this or we could have done that. We know canonically that Judas is kind of helping himself to things. So it's not really about how could we be more economical with our money, because, well, step one, Judas, is stop stealing from the communal purse there. Do you know what I mean? There's a thick vein of hypocrisy there, which gets really sort of brought out in the musical here, where, and it's emphasized in the film here, where he goes, it's not that I object to her profession, but she doesn't fit in well with what you teach and say. It doesn't help us if you're inconsistent. It's like, well, Judas, mate, for most Christians, her profession is the thing we're objecting to. That's the thing we're a bit concerned about, So it seems weird that he's like, oh, well, she's a prostitute, that's fine, but could she maybe be a prostitute over there, please? Somewhere far, far away from you. Because from a PR perspective, this isn't looking great.
It's interesting though, when you were saying that, like, oh, Jesus doesn't come across as particularly kind and nice and stuff in that film. But I think what's really interesting is, like, I think that you can see like the echoes of that, because if you look at the devotion in his followers, like, he must have shown that in the past, because otherwise no one would follow such a horrible dude if he was like that all the time.
We've seen that's not the case, haven't we?
Yeah, I take that back. But no, I mean, like, if you see like the way that his followers worship him and love him, and like particularly Mary Magdalene, how she talks about him, like we can't see the kindness that he's shown, but we can sense that he has shown it, because of the love that they pour upon him. At least that's how I interpret it.
But this is you're not wrong. But again, you're a writer, so much of this is meant to be show, not tell, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's the bit where Jesus is left with the beggars and the cripples who see my eyes, I can hardly see. See my.
That's a good bit.
Yeah,
that was staged well.
Then he's sort of being kind of covered by them, and then he says, "There's too little of me. Leave me alone." I was like, I can get. I'm okay with him saying, "Don't push me." I'm okay with him saying, "All right, lads, listen. Everyone's getting healed. Okay, just give me a little bit of space here." But there's that bit where he says, "There's too little of me. Leave me alone." It's like,
I really liked that. To be fair, because I feel like at this stage, and he says this multiple times in Gethsemane, like, I'm sad and I'm tired and I'm like, I know it's a little bit before then, but like this is kind of the run up. Like, he wants to heal everyone, but he's only one man, and there's like, if he's giving a piece of himself, which seems to be at least to me seems to be it's implied that there's kind of he's giving some piece of himself, I guess. Like, there's only so much of him that he can give.
Yeah.
And like at that stage, it's like,
This is why, to me, this reads like a secular man. rather than the Son of God, because I was never given any sense that his healing abilities are finite or need like a recharge period or anything like that. That he's got the capacity to heal anybody who comes to him. And I don't know if it's Tim Rice or Andrew Lloyd-Webber who said something to the effect of, we were trying to look at the idea of Jesus not necessarily as the Son of God, but just a man who was in the right time in the right place, And the more you, especially as I looked at it this time, this is probably the most secular version of Jesus I think I've seen.
I think it's like, how you can have like high fantasy and low fantasy. It's like, do you like high Jesus where, it's very like, miracles and there is, his power is infinite and, he's very much in a godly aspect? Or do you like low Jesus where he's more grounded and more kind of human and more of a man? I suppose it depends how heretical
this is okay. This is going to sound daft, but this is, to me, this is what makes Jesus so compelling, is that he's both. He's the high Son of God, but he's also the guy who will make you a cup of tea if you've had a really tough day. And there's no disconnect there. There's no, and that's what I enjoy about the paradox, that somebody who is fully God and fully man, not a demigod, not somewhere in between, but literally has the capacity to fling stars into space and also give you a hug if you need it. For me and for billions of other Christians out there, that's the hook. That's what makes it interesting. Do you know what I mean? Go on, Nat.
This, because you were just like, this is a perfect segue for what I was going to talk about. I've got my notes here. Essentially, when I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, have we got here biblical Jesus or historical Jesus? Have you heard of the distinction between these two terms?
You talk me through it, what it means to you.
So essentially it's his biblical Jesus, historical Jesus is the person that we can reconstruct through secular historical methods. So if you're not a Christian, obviously the Gospels are to some extent a historical account, but there are other accounts of Jesus. So for me as a non-Christian, I do believe there probably was a Jesus person. So the historical Jesus is the person who we can reconstruct through secular historical sources and things like
Joseph of Arimathea, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's mentioned. There's a couple of Roman. He's in there.
Romans talks about him.
Yeah,
this guy.
But then you also have biblical Jesus, who is the person we see in the Bible, the divine Messiah, miraculous deeds, resurrection, all of that. So for Christians, obviously biblical Jesus is historical Jesus. There's no difference there, and the Gospels therefore are simply just a set of accounts of events that happened. For non-Christians, views vary quite a lot. So on the one hand, you could see, well, Jesus is basically the real Jesus, if he existed, was basically what we see in the Bible, but maybe all the supernatural feats aren't actually real, like the miracles and stuff. To the other extreme, where some people argue, well, Jesus never existed. I think they're called
mythicists.
I
cannot take them seriously.
I just think there is evidence that there was a person called Jesus.
There's so many different accounts from different places.
And
so a standard of proof has to be different when we're talking about the ancient.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So the fact that there's 4 Gospels about one person, that's way more evidence than we have for other people that we historically assume exist.
I know he's the only sort of commoner. He's the only kind of peasant who has this much ink devoted to him. Anybody else who has their lives being written out in excruciating detail is a king or an emperor or a Caesar or something like that.
So personally, I think in balance of probability that there probably was a real Jesus. I mean, you don't start an entire religion, particularly one that was that successful, over an idea that somebody made up about a person. I just don't think you wouldn't be a very convincing religion to get started. But for me, the miracles, the resurrection, the Son of God thing, that's more of a hard sell. That's where my belief stops. Like, I think there was a person. So the question I have then is like, which Jesus are we getting in Jesus Christ Superstar? Are we getting a biblical Jesus, or are we getting a historical Jesus? And I think you can, depending on your viewpoint, you can kind of see it in both ways. So, like, I mean, on the one hand, we could say, well, obviously this is biblical Jesus. The story beats, even some lines of dialogue, they are straight from the Gospels.
It is missing one fairly significant
the resurrection. I am going to come to that in a minute.
All right.
So I am coming to that. I mean, even Ted Neely himself, the guy who's playing Jesus, he looks, at least to me, like he's stepped out of a Renaissance passion painting. Like,
there's a shot of him, I think it's literally just after Judas is like, why you hang out with Mary Magdalene? And she she drapes the blanket over his head.
Yes.
And there's just me in the light, and I'm like, I've seen this painting before.
It's a Caravaggio, I'm sure it is.
It's uncanny.
Yeah. So yeah, we obviously, like, if you took it just at face value, like, well, it's following the story in the Gospels. You've got all the characters there, all the story beats and so on. But on the other hand, there's no resurrection, which I'm assuming is what we're on about. And there's few, if any, miracles. And anything divine in the movie it's got a very light touch. So we see Jesus laying hands on lepers, but we don't actually see any healing. Like, he just touches them. We don't see the healing. The closest thing we get to a divine act is when Jesus is predicting Peter's denial and Judas's betrayal, which could be, omniscience, or it could just be he really knows his friends well. So I mean, but you could watch Jesus Christ Superstar and come to the conclusion Jesus both is and is not God. He's Schrodinger's saviour. It depends. We don't really know which one he is. And you could interpret it both ways. I was quite proud of that when I wrote that in my notes. So there are two possible explanations that we have here. So maybe this kind of fence sitting is in order to not alienate either of your audiences. We want to please the Christians, but also we don't want to go a bit too God heavy and annoy the non-Christians. So non-Christians like me, I watch this and for me, I'm empathizing with a really tragic, very human figure, watching his best intentions collapsing inwards into betrayal and humiliating death, even without that spiritual theological element. It's a really powerful character-driven narrative, but at the same time, there's nothing that outwardly states that Jesus is not God incarnate. Jesus is shown as human, but the divine is implied. I mean, he shouts in the temple, lays hands on the sick, he endures torture at the hands of the Romans, which is, super on brand with Jesus in the Gospels. And what's interesting, deciding to end the story at his death and ignoring the resurrection, it allows the viewer to, choose your own sequel. Do we have a glorious triumphant return to life, or this downbeat tale of a religious group coming to terms with the murder of its founder? And when the film is over, either outcome is just as feasible, depending on your theological outlook. So on the one hand, we could see this as like, it's, cynical hedge betting. But if it worked, because the musical is beloved by all people. I mean, classic example, my brother.
Is a banger.
A banger is a banger. And like, for my brother, who really does not like musical theatre, Jesus Christ Superstar is his absolute favourite. And my brother's religious faith has waned from absolutely not to absolutely all of it, please. And Jesus Christ Superstar has been a consistent thing that he's always loved. What I think is really interesting, this musical has the breakout appeal that other stuff like Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, even The Chosen, like, it doesn't have that huge appeal beyond Christians. I'm sure there are, non-Christians who do watch and enjoy those things.
Yeah, but that's apples and oranges, though.
Yeah.
Like, saying that The Chosen doesn't have the same appeal as Jesus Christ Superstar feels a little bit unfair.
No, but I'm saying that, like, The Chosen and Jesus Christ Superstar, they're both stories about Jesus.
It's like by Christians for Christians.
Yes, that's the thing.
Whereas Superstar is not by Christians, not for Christians, but also for Christians. A banger is a banger.
I'm happy to concede. It just felt a little bit unfair to be like,
it just
chosen still as good as Jesus Christ Superstar, which has been around for 50 of your
No, I wasn't saying that at all. I'm just trying to, like, it doesn't have that mass appeal. So non-Christians, I mean, I watched a bit of The Chosen. I was like, yeah, this is all right, but it didn't grab me.
The songs aren't as good, I'll grant you.
Yeah, absolutely, and doesn't have that soundtrack. So, I mean, that's one thing. Maybe this kind of not kind of picking a side on is Jesus God or not could be deliberate, like PR, but maybe, and this is where I'm going to get my RS teacher hat on, maybe a deeper theological point being made. Now, I know I have brought up this term before, but I'm going to see if, Giles, you can remember it. You mentioned that the idea that Jesus is fully God and fully human. Can you remember the technical term for that? Oh,
epistemic distance.
No, but well done on trying. It is hypostatic union.
I would never have gotten that in a million years.
Do you know what? My year 11s will be shouting at the podcast right now. But yeah, so the hypostatic union, this is the concept that Jesus is simultaneously both completely 100% fully God, also being completely 100% fully human. And I'm sure we've spoken about this concept before. The idea
this was something that was hotly debated in the early church, wasn't it? And it was one of those things where, like, everybody sits down in a council, or I don't know if it's the Council of Nicaea or something else, where it's like, okay, no, he's not just God or just man. He's both. He's both. Okay, right, lads. Good.
Ben is glory.
Ben is glory.
Ben is glory. I don't get that.
It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mild spoilers, actually. So.
That's my fault for not watching Buffy. I do apologise.
It is your fault.
That's my curse to bear.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's this how you get like this infinite God in the form of a finite human. Like it causes contradictions, but like there's a possibly explanation is this idea called kenosis, which I'm pretty sure I have brought up before. So you find this in Paul's letter to the Philippians. It's often referred to as a passage called the Christ hymn, and it says, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God as a thing to be grasped. He emptied himself by taking the form of a servant. So that idea of emptying, the word used in the original Greek is ekinoson, which is Jesus emptied himself. And so traditional understanding means that Jesus took on this human nature, accepting the human limitations and refraining from using divine power. And in the 1800s, some theologians pushed it a little bit further, suggesting maybe Jesus temporarily relinquished certain divine attributes such as omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. And I think when we've spoken about it before, you quite like this idea, Jesus deliberately puts limits on himself to be human.
It's like, how can I put it? It's like sort of like tying one hand behind your back to play table tennis with your kid or something. You know?
Yeah.
The reason why it resonates with me is from a line in, I want to say Matthew 17, verse 20. He replied, because you have so little faith. Truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. So this is going to sound nuanced, and I'm probably going to screw it up. But again, that idea that Jesus, the Son of God, empties out himself to basically pack himself into a human body, and he only has the special skills available to him, if you like, are the powers and abilities that any human who had that closer relationship with God would have. So we see examples of normal human beings like Peter healing people in Jesus' name, like saying, silver and gold have I none, but walk in Jesus' name. And now nobody's going around saying that Peter's divine. Nobody's going around saying that Peter is...
That's interesting.
Is this the other? So the idea is that Jesus has the abilities, the spiritual abilities of what any person would have if they had such a complete relationship with God. Does that make sense?
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I like. Is that Gilesian headcanon?
No, that's
or
not
is this,
No, that's. I literally picked out the scripture and showed it to you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's canon, baby.
That's canon.
Matthew, like I say, Matthew 17, that the mustard seed, if you had faith as big as a mustard seed, that's what he's saying. Is like, you guys have so little faith, you know. Yeah. And if you just give me a little bit more, you would be able to do so much, you know.
But this idea of Jesus like deliberately emptying itself, it removes a lot of the contradictions, because there are Bible passages where Jesus appears to not know things, like he doesn't know what time of day it is. He's like, when that woman touches him, and he's like, who touched me? It's like, well, you're omniscient, you should know that, because otherwise it turns everything that he does into play acting. Yeah. He's performing for the crowds, you know, and I don't know, that doesn't feel particularly authentic.
That's consistent, the idea that he doesn't know everything all the time.
Yeah.
Constantly. Because if you think about this, right, as a human being with access to a search engine, you theoretically have almost the entire sum of human knowledge at your fingertips if you knew the right question to ask and if you knew where to look, you know? But having that knowledge it isn't the same as it being in your brain right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So Jesus has to ask, who touched me? And if he asked God, Father, who touched me, God would tell him. But
yeah.
It's just
he's got like, God is the ultimate Google.
He's just around there. He's like, who touched me? You know? But yeah, that's
yeah. So this idea of, you know, the hypostatic union, 100% God, 100% human, but then this kenotic Jesus, which is like an emptying, we could argue that's what we're seeing in Jesus Christ Superstar. So in terms of the hypostatic union, the Jesus we see in Superstar is all human pretty much, and there's very little God in there. He's emptied, very human, almost broken, and he doesn't appear omniscient. He struggles with the God's will. Like, obviously in Gethsemane he feels so human there.
The Gethsemane bit, that is lifted straight from the Gospels there, isn't it? I think Jesus Christ Superstar most closely tracks to the Gospel of Mark, I think, in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's what, again, I keep saying it, this is what makes it interesting. You have a guy who, he knows what he's there to do, and he's still scared, you know? He knows he could heal Lazarus, but he still cries. The phenomenal amount of heart on the man is what gets you about him, and that's what is lost throughout most of this film, you know? Don't get me wrong, Gethsemane is a brilliant scene. It's done brilliantly. The film version, where it then cuts to all the sort of Renaissance paintings, and
yeah, that was a bit jarring for me. I was like, okay, we're doing this
now.
now.
Okay, we're doing this now.
So what's quite interesting though, like I read up some like stuff about Andrew Lloyd-Webber, like what was he intending here? And interestingly, the whole omission of the resurrection, there's just some really obvious artistic reasons for this. He said the omitting the resurrection was simply made for a better musical. The crucifixion is the dramatic climax, and if you have the murder of your main character and then in the next scene he comes back to life, it's like, oh well, okay, and it kind of undermines it. And he also said, like, no one is going into Jesus Christ Superstar and going, oh my goodness, what happened next? Like, everyone knows the story. It's the resurrection, he said, is implied, and so you don't need to include it because the audience will know that it's gonna be there. Now, an interesting thing to note, you know, you said about the bus and stuff. Like, I was thinking this, 'cause I watched it again yesterday. I mean, I did think, do I need to watch it again? I literally can just play it on a video in my head, but I did choose to watch it. And what's interesting, obviously, it arrives with the actors, and they are actors getting into costume and unpacking, and it ends with them all departing on the same bus. But the only member of the cast absent from both scenes is Jesus. He's not on the bus at the beginning. They leave him on the cross at the end. My dad always makes the joke when the bus drives off, like Ted Neely's going, guys, I'm still here. Are you coming back? It's really hot. But and what's interesting, so you could argue that what it's suggesting there is like everyone else is an actor playing a part, apart from Jesus. Jesus isn't an actor. He's something else. And you can also see this in the costume choices. Everyone is in like 70s era counterculture, denim tassels, like vest tops and silver helmets and machine guns and stuff. Apart from Jesus. Jesus with his belted tunic and sandals, he's the only one dressed for first century Judea. Everyone else is an actor playing a part. And so you could see Jesus is the only actual authentic person there, and that's why he's not on the bus at the beginning and the end, because he's not an actor. That's one reading of it, at least. That's how it was,
like,
you know,
the first shot you see of him is when his tunic's getting like put on
and
him,
he's not on the bus.
You don't see him before then. You never see him out of costume. The way that it actually stressed me out a little bit. Like, I'm watching, okay, Mary Magdalene, she's going, Judas is on the bus. Where's Ted Neely? You're gonna miss your bus, buddy. Come on, like,
he's still out there in the desert.
Like, you got to pick him up. Like, so I think the idea of him not being an actor actually helps ease that stress. Like, he's where he should be. He's just like
the crucifixion's always the climax. You know, that's always the case. So the resurrection from a story perspective isn't the climax; it's the denouement. You know, it's where it's from storytelling perspective, it's where you wrap up the threads at the end. I do appreciate it does undercut the dramatic tension if the guy who's died now comes back to life, but you know, that's kind of baked into the story. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. You know, I can't say it bothers me because I'm not sure of other media out there where he comes back.
Yeah, they actually wrote a book that you can read. So if you want to know how it really ended, folks, you can just go and read the book, and it's got there's a whole another section for you to.
I do think Mel Gibson did it well with Passion of Christ, where he doesn't sort of dwell on it. It is just Jesus in the tomb, sort of smiling as the light comes over him and then cuts to black. I thought that was a banger, you know.
I'll tell you what I found quite interesting. When I was doing a bit of research about this, I can't remember which pope it was at the time, but they showed the film to the pope. He flipping loved it.
He did, yeah.
He was like, this is going to bring people to Christ. This is going to really help appeal to an audience that we can't reach in any other way.
I think I'm like, that's fair. Pope Paul VI, possibly something like that.
Possibly, I would need to Google it, but I did find it, quite interesting, because I'd just assumed the Catholic Church would have been like, nah, we don't like this, but actually, they like it. My mum's church, Catholic Church, does regular every couple of years when Jesus Christ Superstar's shown, they get like the coach out and they have a nice day out at the Hippodrome in Birmingham.
I love that. I'm just getting the visions of your mum on a bus somewhere. I saw Jesus Christ Superstar when I was for my 15th birthday.
Love it.
1998. We went to the Lyceum. It was fantastic. You know?
I feel like most British kids of a certain age have one of three Bible musicals that shaped you. You were either a Joseph kid, you were a Superstar kid, or you were a Prince of Egypt kid. And it was like one of those then became your whole like.
I've got 2 out of 3 there.
Well, I'm for 3 now. But
we did Joseph at school, and then I saw Jesus Christ Superstar, and I'll get round to the Prince of Egypt. You know,
I am done with my Jesus content. I can move on to Judas.
Yes, please.
So, with Judas then, one of the reasons I love this musical so much is because of Judas. Traditionally, if you look in artwork and like previous stuff, like Judas, he's often shown as a bit pantomime villain for my taste. Just as an aside, I've not watched much more of The Chosen, but how is Judas depicted in The Chosen?
Really well.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he like sympathetic?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a real slow burn.
He's at the moment at least he's just one of the guys. Like he's not sat there like scheming in the background. There was a bit when he first introduced himself where like Jesus like, oh, like, hey, who are you? And he's like, Judas, and there's like kind of the shot kind of goes at like it kind of kind of zooms in a little bit, and there's a bit of a pause, and then it's like, okay, right, fine, yeah, we'll just get to this now. Like, you'll do
the scene where sort of Jonathan Rumy's Jesus sort of meets Judas for the first time, and you can read everything Jesus says like two ways with it. It's amazing, Anyway.
Oh, okay. That's actually making me want to watch a bit more of The Chosen now. That's cool.
Did you not think it's interesting that Judas is black in this? And you've got a white Jesus with borderline blonde highlights. Like, I know it was the 70s, but they still understood that racial tension was a thing. I just thought it was really interesting casting.
Carl Anderson was an original Broadway. I don't know if he originated the role of Judas, but he definitely did do it on Broadway before the film.
And he wasn't the only person in the running for Judas. It was just for his voice, but like the bit when he hangs himself at the end, it's
I don't
black person hanging from a tree. I don't know if they necessarily considered that, but
I think it's a case of they did genuinely choose Carl Anderson for his theatrical and musical prowess. He is fantastic, and I just don't think they considered.
Which is again, that's weird, that isn't it? It's like, well, we've got a black guy in this role. It's too obvious to not consider it. But if it was deliberate, then they don't.
But if you look at the ethnic makeup of the rest of the apostles, I mean, I know they don't get much screen time, but it is a real mix of ethnicities, and so
Zealot is black.
There's
quite a few. Although I don't actually know, I can only point out two of the apostles, and that's Simon Zealot and Peter. Yeah, and I think the less said about Peter, the better, to be honest.
Yeah, because the others they don't really get much to do, do they? No. But yeah, so in Jesus Christ Superstar, Judas is kind of the main character now.
Jesus Christ Superstar is the story of the Gospels from Judas's perspective.
I mean, I tried to find out online specifically if this is true. I think this is true, but I couldn't. I was getting conflicting information. But I think he has more lines than Jesus. Yeah. He has more time on stage.
He also gets more resurrections than Jesus as well.
Yeah. But it is interesting, like as an artistic decision to centre Judas, allow us to see Jesus through his eyes, and I think, in my opinion, I think he gets some of the best songs. Like Jesus gets Gethsemane, which that high note, which we talked about, but Judas gets Heaven on Their Minds, the opening number, which is like my favourite go-to shower song.
Absolutely slaps, in every universe.
And I really love Damned for. I really love Damned for All.
You've set him off.
I know.
Too well.
God, mute. But I love Damned for All Time as well.
Yes.
No, I always think it's going to become like the Batman theme tune. But also, and obviously the title song, Superstar, you get some amazing songs. Yeah. By the way, just while we're talking about Judas songs, you know the song Walk the Moon? You know the song, the band that did Shut Up and Dance with... There's a brilliant song on one of their albums. It's called Iscariot. Just if you get a chance, just have a listen to it. It's really interesting because I can't figure out if it's being written from the point of view of Jesus about Judas or the other way around. But it's a really good song, but just check it out. Anyway, so Judas's depiction in Superstar is incredibly sympathetic, and his betrayal of Jesus almost kind of portrayed as almost like a selfless act. Like, he can see which way the wind's blowing. He knows exactly how precarious their religious movement is. Now, this is obviously how they do it in the film. I don't think this is necessarily supported by what we see in the Bible. It could be inferred.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't. I can't believe I'm saying this. Let's leave the Bible out of it for now.
Yeah. I've got Bible stuff to come to.
I feel like Judas's motives for selling out Jesus, I know he says he's doing it for noble reasons. I don't think he is doing it for noble reasons. I think somebody described this story as a friendship breakup that got way out of hand. You know,
the messiest friendship breakup in history.
You get the strongest feeling that in this film, the frustration stems from Judas feels like he's not being listened to. You know, and you see that when you're in like professional context or anything, when you're like, look, I know the right thing to do here. You're not listening to me. and that's going to screw everything up, you know. And if I was approaching this role, that would be the root thing that I'd be going from, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I also, well, I think you're right, but I see it as well. Like, I think Judas, obviously, he is super, super flawed, because like I also see it as like he thinks he's disappointed in Jesus, and I think there's an element of like you said, he's not being listened to, almost like, right, I'm going to show you, like, if you're going to listen to, almost like on an unconscious level, like he's trying to punish him for not being who he thought he should be. But I mean, like, he obviously, like, there's those scenes like with Simon Zealots when you know, Christ, you know I love you, and like and then all the Romans turn up and Judas is like, we need to, like, he doesn't, I don't think, he never wanted Jesus dead. He just wanted to put the brakes on. He was trying to send a message. And
yes, but okay, that's like those people who voted for Brexit to send a message to Westminster. Do you know what I mean? It's like the consequences of that were absolutely freaking horrendous, and you should have known better.
Yeah.
There was no standard form of crucifixion in this time, because at least according to Tom Holland, Romans like to just experiment with crucifixions. They like to sort of twist bodies and bend them and break them in new and interesting ways, just for experimental purposes. And you can't be that naive. You know, I get that he wasn't selling them out directly to the Romans, but you're selling them out to the Sanhedrin, and like, well, what did you think was going to happen? You know,
he was very naive about what was going to happen. And just like something interesting I found as well, the 30 pieces of silver. Do you know the significance of why 30 pieces of silver was the price? So I really didn't know this. So in the Old Testament, in Exodus 21:32, 30 pieces of silver is the compensation for a slave killed by an ox, which potentially that's why the Sanhedrin had that particular value, because it's highlighting, like, that's how they view Jesus. He's this lowly common servant. He's not even worth a massive bribe. He's worth the compensation. If, like, you know, has your slave been killed, you might be, you know, eligible for compensation.
We've been trying to reach you about your extended slave warranty.
I mean, it's like, that's like, even the bribe is kind of like insultingly low. And it
hang on, that doesn't make sense, because with the bribe, with the 30 pieces of silver, he's able to buy a field with it.
Well, we'll come to his death in a minute, because like that's a bit. There's two versions of that as well, but like, but also that sum fulfills a prophecy from Zechariah 11:12-13, where the Lord will be valued at quite a similarly paltry price. So it's like, it's all tying in with this Old Testament stuff. I just thought that was really interesting, that choice of 30 pieces of silver is a very deliberate choice of 30 pieces of silver to kind of like show this is what the Sanhedrin think of him. Anyway, so getting back to Judas, so his motivation in the musical is really interesting, but what does the Bible teach about Judas's decision? So obviously he betrays him in all four Gospels, but there doesn't seem to be a clear reason. So in the earliest account, in Mark, Judas goes to the chief priest and they offer him money as a reward, but the text doesn't really state that that's why he's doing it. In Matthew's version, he's a lot more mercenary. He goes and he explicitly asks them, what will you pay me? Luke and John give a different explanation. They say that Satan entered Judas and prompted him to betray Jesus. Now, it doesn't mean that these are mutually incompatible, because it could be that Satan entered him and then wanting the money was part of that. But it does pose an interesting question, because if he was under Satan's control, can we hold him responsible for that betrayal? There's a lot of questions here to which I do not have answers or opinions. So okay,
well, I'm going to give you my opinion. Satan enters him. I read that as metaphorical.
Oh, could be.
So it's like saying it, but it's one of those things where you can interpret it in that way if you wanted to. I don't think we're talking about a full-on demonic possession. I think this is like Satan entered him is the same way of saying he listened to the devil on his shoulder.
Okay, fair enough. That kind of makes sense.
That, because if somebody is doing something under spiritual possession, then they are not as responsible their burden of responsibility is dropped, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, again, the whole issue of, like, Judas's betrayal, like, it does pose quite a lot of questions. Again, these are questions I have no horse in this race, so I don't really have an opinion on these, but they're quite interesting. Like, why would Jesus recruit Judas as an apostle if he knew he was going to betray him? Because, like, he obviously did know he's going to betray him. He basically said, you're going to go betray me. So he knew that was going to happen.
You conflated two things there, and they're not the same thing. So by the time of the Last Supper, yes, he knows that Judas is going to betray him.
Yeah.
When he recruits him to be an apostle, he does not necessarily know that Judas is going to betray him. Do you remember what I said? What did you call it?
Kenosis. Yeah, the emptying. Yeah.
Kenosis, yeah.
So that would solve that problem.
He doesn't necessarily know that Judas is going to betray him. Also, the tragedy of Judas is not that he betrayed Jesus. The tragedy is that he killed himself before Jesus came back. You know?
Yeah.
Everybody screwed up. Judas betrayed Jesus. Peter denied Jesus, but at least Peter was flipping outside the outside the temple courts. There's no mention of the other apostles being flipping anywhere around to be questioned by any crowds. And Peter was absolutely, clearly, coherently forgiven. Jesus gives him a bit of a hard time about it, but he does forgive him. He would have done the same for Judas.
But that's obviously, that does make logical sense, but, like, not every Christian would agree with that, because a lot of Christians would say there's like Jesus has omniscience and so would have known everything that was going to happen beforehand.
Yeah.
But then that kind of ties in the thing. It's like what Julia was saying earlier, like, was Judas's betrayal part of the plan?
Yeah,
if it was, then if he was just and that's kind of addressed in, it's like, what if I just stay here and ruin your ambitions?
Yeah,
Christ, you deserve it.
I think Tim Minchin's performance kind of leans more towards that. There's a point in the Last Supper where Judas is like, "I'll go on now, you know, they're waiting," and he sort of gives this, Tim Minchin as Judas gives this little sort of bow, and I read a really cool comment that was sort of like, is this Judas kind of accepting the role that he kind of feels he has to play in this tragedy that you know, someone has to be the fall guy. How much of that is preordained?
Yeah.
In the, do you know what I mean?
This is a fascinating thing. If Judas hadn't betrayed him and they hadn't arrested him on the Thursday night, they would have got him Tuesday next week. It's not like you take Judas out of the story and the entire thing falls down. If the Son of God does have to die for humanity, and if the Sanhedrin do want to arrest him and the Romans will crucify him, then this will happen. I firmly believe that Judas could have just said no. Judas could have said, actually, do you know what, lads? I'm going to go for a little walk and have a bit of a think about this.
You're going to run out for some sheep.
Because there would have been, go touch some grass, you know.
Go pet a sheep.
go pet a sheep. Because Judas had free will. And this story could go 100 other different ways, but this is the way it went, you know. And we're almost getting into like time travel paradoxes here, okay? But if you think of like a stream of water going down a stream, okay, and you throw a big rock into the stream, the water doesn't just stop. It doesn't just go, oh, I've hit a rock, it goes around the rock, you know. So when we come to this preordained, predestined stuff, which again we talk a lot about in church, Kurt, things like, if you have God's plan for your life, just because God has a plan for your life doesn't mean you have to follow it, but it's probably going to be the best option for your life there. So if you don't go out on it to this mission setting, or if you don't do the thing that you think God wants you to do, he'll probably find somebody else for it. And they'll probably do a good job, but it probably won't be as good as you could have done it, you know?
But the issue with that is that if you believe that God has perfect omniscience, he already knows what you're going to do before you do it. And so would it have ever have been possible for you to do something different? This is something we talk about a lot in RS. I mean, there is an argument that that just because God knows what you're going to do before you do it doesn't mean that he made you do it. Like the analogy that I can't remember which philosopher came up with it, but it's like if I was stood on a hill and in the distance I could see somebody's got their foot stuck in a train track and I can see that the train is coming. I know what is going to happen before the person it happens to is aware, but it doesn't mean that I did it. But I think it's not a perfect analogy, but it is an interesting, if God already knows your choices, then could you have done something different?
This is one of those things, and we're going to have to wrap this bit up now because we've devoted entire episodes to this in the past and still got nowhere.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, the other stuff about Judas, like we've kind of talked about, like was he forgiven or not? But like I think you're absolutely the point I was going to make. You've already made the idea that it wasn't that he betrayed Jesus that condemns him to hell. It's the fact that he condemned Jesus and then thought he could not get forgiveness for it, and he died before he got the chance to ask for forgiveness, because obviously you can compare him to Peter, who denies Jesus and then gets forgiven, but the key difference is Peter knew there was a way back, whereas Judas lost hope. And the argument is that it's Judas's loss of hope that's what condemns him.
It's like he lost his faith, right?
Yeah,
like it was more of a losing of faith that he could find his forgiveness.
But it's interesting, like, is Judas still in hell? I mean, Dante puts him there. He's, like, in the centre of hell, apparently. Not that Dante's theologically accurate, but...
He's there with... It's Judas and it's Brutus.
Yeah.
And then isn't there some other guy that Dante
Satan,
hates?
Oh, it's traitors, isn't it? But what's interesting, obviously, in the Bible...
Just so we are 100% clear to anybody listening, Dante's Inferno is, like... Christian fanfic on speed, okay? It is just because Dante says that Judas is there doesn't mean that he necessarily
like Dante's like fan fiction and also his burn book. Like,
I
don't like you.
Do you know who else is in hell? My next door neighbour who mows the lawn at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning, he's in hell. But yeah, like Judas's deaths are interesting because he dies twice in the New Testament. So you have him in Matthew betraying Jesus and then giving the silver back after regretting it and then hanging himself. But then in Acts, Peter says that Judas used the money to buy a field. And then he fell headlong, his body burst open and his intestines spilled out, which then became known as the Akeldama, or Field of Blood. I mean, you could argue that these are just different parts of the same story. Like, he hangs himself and then his body is there for a while and then explodes with rot.
I can see why they chose one of these for stage and not the other one.
Yeah, that would have been really difficult to stage, like his intestines flying out and stuff. So
this is one of those. It's a contradiction. As you say, the Christian apologetics, there is a way to kind of marry it up and say he hangs himself and then his body bursts and he falls and this sort of stuff. It doesn't bother me because there's a reason why we're not entirely clear what happened to Judas, and it's because he killed himself before he could tell anybody what he was going to do and how he was going to do it. So it seems entirely consistent to me in first century Israel. You might get some conflicting accounts about how Judas died. And it's only a problem if you have this incredibly narrow idea of sola scriptura, about the idea of the book of biblical inerrancy. Sometimes the Bible gets things wrong. Sometimes the Bible disagrees with itself, and that's okay. You know?
It's the word of God written through the words of man, and the words of man sometimes are a bit wonky.
It doesn't change how I read the gospel narrative.
Do we have time for Mary Magdalene?
Quickly.
Okay, so, I mean, do you know what the Bible tells us about her? What are the facts from the Bible we know about her?
So, her name was Mary, or Miriam, or Mariam. It was some derivative of that. Like, Mary was like the...
They're all flipping called Mary.
They're all flipping called Mary. I think it was like one of the third most popular names of that sort of time. And she hailed from the area of Magdala. And hence why she's called Magdalene. I don't know for definite, but I think Magdala was it might have been like a fishing village.
Yeah, it's on the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah, but beyond the times that she is referenced as Mary Magdalene did this and Mary Magdalene said that, we don't know a whole heap.
Yeah.
We do know that it was Mary that Jesus revealed himself to at a resurrection. So I can't take anyone seriously who said that women shouldn't be allowed to preach, because Jesus literally picked a woman to preach his return from the dead.
Yeah, Paul.
So the facts that we have from the Bible about her, he writes for Magdala. Jesus cast 7 demons out of her. She was one of the women following Jesus, supporting his ministry financially. Actually, like it implies that she actually had a bit of wealth. She was present at the crucifixion. She saw where Jesus was buried. She went to the tomb on Sunday, found it empty. She's one of the first people to see the risen Jesus. She mistakes him for a gardener, which I think is so sweet. And then Jesus tells her to go and tell the disciples. Like, that's it. That's what we get from Mary. So, like, why?
Is it never explicitly mentioned in the Bible that she's even of just of ill repute?
Nope. She is like nothing but a loyal and upstanding follower of Jesus. So this is really, because I had no idea. I went on a massive deep dive about this. So basically, the confusion around Mary Magdalene is one of the most famous cases where later Christian tradition reshapes a Bible character. The Gospels themselves keep several women separate, but over time they merge into one figure. So in the Gospel of Luke, there's a story about an unnamed sinful woman who washes Jesus' feet with her tears and wipes him with her hair and anoints him with perfume. Now, the text never names this woman, never calls her Mary Magdalene, but immediately after this story, Luke introduces Mary Magdalene as a woman from whom Jesus cast out 7 demons.
I'll say you sometime, like, if there's an unnamed woman just hanging around, sooner or later somebody's going to be like, is that Mary Magdalene?
Yeah, exactly.
They needed more female characters in this.
What's that meme with the guy and the butterfly? Like, is this a pigeon?
I mean, to be honest, like, her name probably was Mary, but
the woman caught in adultery is sometimes people say it was that Mary Magdalene. There's
do you know what? More than one woman can exist. Oh, yes, that's the next one I'm going to talk about. So, like, because those passages appear next to each other, the sinful woman and Mary Magdalene, people are like, oh, they must be the same person, because you can't have more than one woman. It's the Smurfette problem, isn't it? Another separate figure is Mary of Bethany, who is the sister of Martha and Bethany, Martha of Bethany and Lazarus of Bethany. And in John, Mary of Bethany anoints Jesus with expensive perfume, wipes his feet, which is very similar to Luke's sinful woman. But John explicitly names her as Mary of Bethany, not Mary Magdalene. So by the time you read the gospel, so when you read the Gospels closely, you have these 3 different women: the unnamed sinful woman in Luke, Mary of Bethany in John, and Mary Magdalene. And the big turning point of this is Pope Gregory I in 591. Pope Gregory, god damn it! I told my Catholic mum about this, and she's like, I think we should take the sainthood away from this Pope. She got quite angry about this because in a sermon, I don't even know if he's a saint, but he probably is, in 591 AD, he argued in a sermon that the sinful woman, Mary of Bethany, and Mary Magdalene were all the same person. Just out of his head, he just came up with this. He also interpreted the 7 demons cast out of Mary Magdalene as representing the 7 deadly sins, which reinforces the idea that she'd been sexually immoral. And this interpretation then became hugely influential in Western Christianity for centuries. Yeah, you can't see, listener, the look on Giles's face, but he looks perturbed and annoyed.
Don't you just hate it when men just have an idea and then make it everyone else's problem?
Now, I have, we have Gilesian headcanon. I've got Natalie headcanon. I have a theory why this was such a popular idea. Well, my theory, I went on the Wikipedia page, and there's obviously a lot of any biblical character. There's like 50 depictions of that person in different artwork. Mary Magdalene's depiction in art is a little bit spicy. She's often shown bare-breasted and stuff, and I don't know, this idea of having such an important female character being this fallen woman, and you get to show the repentance, it's an excuse to draw boobs. I feel like that's what a lot of the that's why not why that idea came from, but it allowed like Renaissance artists to draw this, it's biblical, but it's also a little bit racy. Like, that's why I wonder why this idea may have taken off slightly. And also massive sexism as well.
I love boobs as much as the next guy, as you know. But I don't think you're wrong, but I think you've just come in at the wrong point, okay?
Oh, it's only a small part of it. It's a massive oversimplification.
The reason why you take someone as important as Mary Magdalene and basically say that she was a prostitute is patriarchy. You know,
totally.
We're not comfortable with the idea that Jesus picked one woman follower who he was proud of and who he cared for and who was competent. We have to take her down a peg or two or three or 10, and then if we can say maybe she's a prostitute, then it means it's easier to debase her and to, as you say, sexualize her and all the rest of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you're growing up if there's this world where women it's the Madonna whore dichotomy.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, and you're trying to control women. This is what you would do, you know?
See, I was thinking that, like, the term Madonna whore came into my head when I was reading this, because Mary Magdalene does not, how she is in the Bible is neither. She's not, you know, she's obviously not depicted as the whore in the Bible, but she's also not like this kind of, you know, Mary, mother of Jesus type, this like perfectly, you know, pure, sinless woman. It's like male writers don't quite know what to do with her because she's human. Yeah. She doesn't fit.
She's just a girl, folks. Just a woman. a normal woman.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, this seems to be an issue with Western Christianity. The Eastern Orthodox Church never had a problem with this. They never had this confusion between these three characters. In the Eastern tradition, Mary Magdalene is a faithful disciple. She's sometimes called equal to the apostles, and she's honoured primarily as the first witness of the resurrection. She's not treated as this like repentant prostitute. What's quite nice, though, is that, you know, modern biblical scholars and many churches now recognise that the biblical text actually never identifies a prostitute. It's like they've actually gone back and read the Bible. It's quite nice.
It's a bit Mandela effect.
Yeah. It's like, Mary Magdalene, she's a prostitute. Let me just find that passage in the Bible where it says that, it's got to be here somewhere. No, whoops. But in fact, actually, the Roman Catholic Church itself, you know, thanks to Pope Gregory, this is where we get this idea from, but the church in Pope Greg, damn it, Greg. But in 1969... In 1969, when they reformed the liturgical calendar, they quietly removed this kind of doctrine that she was a prostitute, and they now emphasise her as being the apostle to the apostles. So it's no longer official Catholic teaching, and that she was a prostitute, and they have acknowledged, we made a mistake, we got it wrong, sorry guys, sorry Mary, sorry for the 1500 years of besmirching your honour. But what's interesting, obviously in Jesus Christ Superstar, Mary Magdalene is that traditional Western interpretation. She's emotionally close to Jesus. There's that kind of implied romantic tension, which, I mean, gives us the wonderful song "I Don't Know How to Love Him."
This film was the first time I ever had that idea sort of brought to me that sort of Mary is in love with him in a different.
But it's such a beautiful, complicated song, because she's like, I love him, but it's a kind of love I don't know what to do, because if he responded, I'd be terrified. I wouldn't want that. So I literally don't know how to love it. I just love that song. It's beautiful. So yeah, it's like, you know, the musical is drawing on the tradition rather than the Bible. And to be fair, Andrew Lloyd-Webber and Tim Rice, they probably weren't even aware that this wasn't actually biblical, because it's so deeply embedded in Western Christianity that, you know, I'm an RS teacher. I kind of just assumed it was in the Bible somewhere, and it really isn't. I'm kind of embarrassed now.
Only repealed in 1969 was sort of when it was repealed?
Yeah.
Then it had only been a new thing for 4 years?
Yeah, fair enough.
It would be quite and if you're not hanging out with Catholics that much, then I guess it wouldn't really come across your radar.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there we go. That was everything that I wanted to say. Giles, did you say you had something interesting to say about Pilate? Because he is such an interesting character.
I just have very little patience for Pilate.
Oh, I love Pilate.
So he's the first white man in the Bible. We have that line about him washing his hands, which some suggest that was you put that line in to kind of soften things for a Gentile audience.
Is that in Luke?
I can't remember. I think it's Luke, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. You know,
because he's obviously writing for the Gentiles. So I just.
So there's the bit where he's like, I had this dream, I had this man, I asked these questions, and then I heard them mentioning my name and leaving me the blame.
In the Bible, it's Pilate's wife that has the dream, isn't it?
Yeah. I have so little patience for a dude who says, well, I'm washing my hands. I wash my hands of your
demolition. Oh, but it's such a good part.
I might say something that's controversial. I think the 73 version of Pilate is my least favourite Pilate. I don't know why. I just weirdly the 2000 film Pilate I actually really enjoyed, but I couldn't. It's one that I think I'm gonna have to sit and unpick because one thing I did appreciate with the 73 one is where I think most versions do this where he kind of has Jesus in his arms after the 39 lashes, kind of going, hey, look, man, I can give you an out. Just give me the word and I'll give you an out. And Jesus is like, no, I'm not going to do that. Him kind of literally having the blood on his hands and physically washing that off is, I suppose, perhaps for not subtle at all, but I enjoy the glaring obviousness of it symbolically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
I mean, the Tim Minchin version's really interesting because they make Pilate, he's much more of kind of like
suited and booted.
Yeah,
he's more corporate.
So good, yeah. Like it is almost like corporate, like politician sort of thing, and he's. I don't know. I really like that Pilate. I mean, I love Pilate. I think in Jesus Christ Superstar, you can kind of see the difficulty he's in. He's like, I've got the life of this one guy. I don't want to kill him, but I am going to have an absolute riot on my hand if I don't. And so you kind of can see the bind that he's in, and you might not agree with his decision, but you can see why he made it.
Yeah, I think
just the thing of what I wash my hands. It's like, well, you're not morally neutral here. You didn't. You sent this guy to the execution, and you can't say that you didn't. Because if you had the chance to stop a bad thing happening, but you didn't stop the bad thing happening, how are you not morally responsible for that? Do you know what I mean?
But Jesus also is like not helping himself. He could have literally said anything. And because Pilate was asking, like, come on, what can I do? Just say something. He's like, everything's set. There's nothing you can do. It's got to happen. And yeah, I mean, there was what could Pilate have done? I mean, I'm obviously just talking musical Pilate, not Bible
This is just
Pilate.
one of my things of just, I have very little patience for people in power saying how much power they don't have. I'm like, dude.
I think as well as like do you get what I'm getting at when I say like the Miltonification, like how kind of Milton is like let's make Lucifer a sympathetic character. I think with this, I don't know if perhaps Pilate is actually getting more of a sympathetic spin than Judas is.
That's interesting.
He's because obviously the and I'm talking purely from a musical perspective. The musical was written to be from the perspective of Judas, to kind of humanize him and kind of give an argument that was he not justified in what he did. But also with Pilate is consistently portrayed as this very, I'm basically at the mercy of everybody else. I don't get to decide what happens to you. That's Herod's business. I want to help you now, but I've got an angry mob of 200 people that are going to skin me alive if I don't do what they want. I've got pressure. It's one where actually he's portrayed as quite not sympathetic, because really he's a bit of a snivelling coward.
He's a bit of a middleman, isn't he?
He's just this, but you want to feel bad for him in a way. You want Jesus to be able to give them this out, and he's not. It's again, I think it's more
kind of linked
this,
with the
tragedy,
banality of evil.
Yeah, this tragedy of if you'd done this, if he had done that, if they had said this, and I think that's
So much of evil isn't sort of
home,
isn't evil pantomime films like sort of twirling mustache. It's somebody in power not doing something that they could have done.
Is that Adolf Eichmann? That's what Hannah Arendt said. That term banality of evil. It was during the Nuremberg trials.
Yes.
That's where that term comes from.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that wraps up our finding the faith in the film, and we've got at least 15 different things we can go on to, different tangents we can go on to from that. Natalie, do you feel like you've got something out of your system?
I feel like a new woman, Giles, and all you have done is encouraged me by making me realise that whatever I want from you, if I just don't shut up about it, eventually you'll give in.
Yeah.
So I'm fully expecting a new car by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's been the basis of our friendship for the last 20 years.
I do feel it goes both ways.
Oh, yeah,
be fair.
100%. Quick thank you to our patrons, Sarah Cooper, Jonathan Wattis, James Pittard, Simon Seller, Philip Coleman, Lance Kane, and one Natalie Faye Miniker, who did a cracking job here.
I paid to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed our Easter special. Our next episode will be on The Chosen, Season 5. So basically, all the events you see here, but with distinctly less singing. I mean, maybe there is singing. I haven't seen it yet. But more tables will be flipped for you, Julia,
so
which
excited.
I know is your key thing.
That's my jam.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll see you next time, ladies and gents. Julia, have you had a good time?
I've had a great time. I was wondering when we were going to start our 3-man rendition of the whole score, to be honest. Are we saving that for the next
That's the DLC.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. Natalie, have you had a good time?
Do you know what I'm going to say, Giles? That was the buzz. That was what's happening.
Me too. Okay, ladies and gents, we'll see you soon.
Bye. Woo!
God in Film is hosted and created by Giles Goff.
That's me.
Mixing and editing by Giles. Our logo was designed by
Julie Walsh.
And our theme tune was composed by
Rick Lee.
Waffle editing by
Louisa Jane Smith.
Please rate and review.
Please give us 5 stars because that's a nice thing to do.